Hi, I'm Lydia. I'm a professional violinist.
And hi, I'm Mark. I'm a concert pianist.
We're here today to talk to you about practicing. What are some common practice methods and how you can maximize your practice sessions. So Mark, you're a concert pianist. How do you practice and what does practice look like for you?
Well, practicing is a process, a long-term process really. It's a process of kind of developing the mind and also a sense of responsibility. And I think a key word is consistency. It's oftentimes much more effective to keep coming back day after day as opposed to spending that same amount of time at once to try to accomplish a task. You have to look at it like a long-term process because regardless of the pieces that you're playing, practicing is something you're going to constantly be coming back to. You're going to be doing a lot of it. But how about you, Lydia? What does it mean to you?
Well, it's kind of evolved over the years that I've studied. It used to be really annoying when I was a kid. My mom used to try and make me practice and I never wanted to, but that's the only way you get better. And as I got older and I studied and I went to university and college, it kind of got easier. But I resonate with what you said about consistency. Sometimes just like if I made an appointment with myself in the practice room, I'd say at 7 a.m., 6 a.m., I'm going to be practicing 1 hour scales, 1 hour of shifting, of technique, 1 hour of my concerto. And that was the only way I really got it done. But I found that was a lot more consistent and I saw more progress over time. But practicing itself, I think it's actually a really mystical concept that a lot of people don't talk about and kind of one that I'm hoping we can further talk about today. So how do you structure your own practice, Mark?
Well, it kind of depends on what my goals are at the time, whether I have a concert that's coming up next week or whether I'm trying to work on something like a technical concept or I don't know, perhaps a musical concept. And so the first thing I think is really just deciding what you're doing, sitting down at the bench and really taking a moment to strategize and find the best approach. And then from there, I will either use the repertoire or the technique as a kind of benchmark for me to decide how best to proceed from there.
So you don't just sit at a piano and start playing your concerto?
No, as a matter of fact, I oftentimes will resist that approach because I find that the time ends up not completely wasted, but I'm not progressing in an efficient manner. I'm not working on the things that really need to be worked on. But what about you?
Yeah, well, how I structure it is I usually, kind of like you, I actually operate with a journal. This is something I would advocate a lot of students do.
Absolutely, yes.
But I keep a record, so I have a journal and I'll write down the date, what I want to accomplish, and the pieces that I have to do, and I'll write down scales. Did I do them? Yes or no? How did they go? Was that sharp or flat? Did I do my thirds, my sixths, and my octaves? Check it off the list, and then I move on to my technique or my etudes. And I'm constantly reevaluating, was that good? Was that bad? Why was it bad? And that's one thing I've struggled with, is trying to be non-judgmental about your practicing. Have you struggled at all with self-criticism in that regard, Mark?
Oh, absolutely. It's hard to avoid that, but I think it's important to remember that it is a long-term process. It's not something that's going to happen in a day. And so you have to be very patient with yourself, and you have to be patient with the music as well.
That's really good to know. So, the next question I'd like to ask you is what the difference might be between practicing and practicing in performance, or how do you prepare for a performance?
Well, practicing performance is something that's very often overlooked, and it's something that's very necessary. See, the mechanism of performance, being able to continue regardless of any mistakes or mental mishaps that might happen, is not something that just happens automatically.
Really? Yeah, totally.
You have to set up some times where you're actually going to play through, even if you're by yourself, and pretend like it's the real performance. If you can get some friends or parents or somebody that's willing to listen, it's even better.
So you will simulate almost a performance. You might even, well, I do this. I play for my teddy bears.
No, well, that's perfect.
But so you kind of simulate that, do that. How many times would you do that? Let's say you have a really major concert or recital.
As many as I can.
Really?
As many as I can, and the process is performing itself is a process that needs to be practiced so that your mind can be adequately prepared when you are actually approaching the moment when you're going to walk on stage. And so I would say at every opportunity I can.
That's awesome. What other psychological tools do you use to prepare for performance or things that you go to when you're practicing?
A big thing for me is the use of the mind. We can get a lot of things done through mental visualization, whether we're imagining our way through playing the piece, or we're imagining what the performing space would be like and how it will feel for us to be on stage, perhaps with our heart rate a little higher, perhaps a little bit nervous. The more that we can imagine and visualize this, the less foreign or the more familiar it will be to us when we actually get into the moment.
That's really interesting. Yeah, for me it's quite similar. I will often use visual cues and visualization to study music. And this actually, I have found, eliminates a lot of mistakes that I would normally make physically playing it. I know a lot of Olympians use the same technique. Downhill skiers will often pretend and go through all their motions all in their mind to simulate that before, and oftentimes make less mistakes. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us. We hope this was informational for you. And do you have anything else to say, Mark?
I wish you the best in your practicing. And remember, responsibility, consistency, and patience will go a long way in furthering your goals.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See you soon.